Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. Hope you're well. Welcome to the breakdown. You'll have to let me know if that if the audio's all right, because unfortunately I've been unplugging and plugging stuff in, so I think it's all right. I'm pretty sure it's good. Should we just get the headphones on? Just double check. But yes, welcome indeed, and yes, plenty to discuss. As always on a Sunday, it seems like there's always a lot to discuss, and I think there's a few ways, as I mentioned in the 5 things video yesterday, earlier, is, on paper, you had to just make sure we got 3 points. Clean sheet is what it is, right? But there's a lot more to it. I think it's fair to say over the recent couple of camps, Craig Bellamy as manager has lost a bit of steam in terms of the support, because I think when he first came in, the way he spoke and the way he implemented his tactics and the way he wanted to play in those first few games, there was a clear plan and people were very much like refreshed by it after Robert Page. The last couple of camps, it's felt like he has lost a bit of support maybe, or a bit of steam, or people a bit questioning some of his decisions. And unfortunately, some of those decisions, particularly the in-game stuff, has backfired a little bit in recent games. Some people seem to think that we should be top of that group. Look, we have a very small pool of players. We do not have a Gareth Bale. We do not have a peak Aaron Ramsey. We do not have even, the likes of Neil Taylor and like, who were all big contributors to what Wales did over the years. We don't have those players now. What we do have is a crop of young players who have been fast-tracked to the first team, who are finding their feet at an international level, and they're probably not quite ready in some cases to do that. Now, I would argue yesterday, and specifically Liechtenstein have a large portion of their squad that are not full-time athletes. Okay? So, in my opinion, and look, other people might disagree with this, the likes of your Sheenans and your Colwells and the Cardiff players, for instance, but not just them, other ones, championship players, they all should have been good enough to navigate that tie yesterday. Yes, there's pressure on it, but I think they should have been and are good enough to play. Did you need to risk 4 of your biggest, most important players all on a yellow card? It could have backfired even more horribly wrong than it did. Obviously, Jordan James gets a booking. The second Jordan James was booked, Ethan Ampadu should have been off that pitch before the player even got up from the challenge for Jordan James to protect the side. I understand you have to win the game in front of you and you've got to take it one game at a time. But you have players in the squad, on the bench, that are capable of contributing. There are players there who can do a certain job, a certain role, and perform it to a decent level if you give them the opportunity. So as soon as Jordan James was booked, Ethan Ampadu, in my opinion, should have been offed. Personally, the one time where we could have done with maybe a single pivot and 2 attacking 10s and gone with Sheenan and Cullen was probably yesterday. And he didn't play it, which is baffling to me. But that's by and by, I suppose. Rodon and Nico Williams luckily didn't get booked. Do you imagine if they'd got booked as well? Jesus Christ. That was a big risk, and I didn't really understand it. I felt that we had the midfield options. What do we have in midfield that we could have used yesterday? You could have used Joel Colwell. You could have used Liam Cullen. You could have used Josh Sheenan. I'm going off the top of my head, so I apologize. David Brooks. There was people there you could have used who should be more than good enough to deal with Liechtenstein. And then, if we've half hour, 20 minutes to go, then you need an Ampadu or Jordan James or a Nico Williams, whoever, then you can kind of risk them. They're less likely to get booked. To me, that makes a lot more sense. And then if you don't need to risk them, you don't need to play them. And they have a rest. And they're fresh for Tuesday. Because now we are left with a bit of a predicament in that our literal 2 best central midfielders are out. And it's a massive game. Wales need to win this football match. I mean, I know we're going to make the playoff anyway, but if we win this game Tuesday, we will go into the one side, and likely, I think it looks like it'll be Montenegro at home in a one-off game. I'd back us to give anyone a game at home in a one-off game. If we don't win or we don't finish second in the group, we get an away one-off game, which looks like there's a big chance it could be Italy, which is a whole different kettle of fish. And I just feel like, are we in the position we're in? Is it partially self-inflicted? Is the question, I guess. And I think at times during this qualifying period, some of the decision-making in-game selections has been puzzling. Now, of course, as we always say, a manager will go down with the ship, and they'll go down with their selections, good or bad. They will go with what they go with. I see a lot of people getting on Mark Harris. He's played, I think, 11 international appearances, hasn't got a goal or an assist, and like, why are we playing him in a game where we need goals and blah blah blah. Like, I think Mark Harris does a job that Craig Bellamy likes, in that he's busy, he presses, his link-up play is okay, and he runs the channel and he'll work tirelessly. There's other players who can do that, who maybe are a bit more threatening towards goal. I would have gone with Brennan Johnson. If we were playing 4-4-2, I would have gone with Brennan Johnson alongside Nathan Broadhead yesterday. It's exactly because what you need from Brennan Johnson is, you need Brennan Johnson to discover his club form and his club belief in a Wales jersey. Now, what better way to do that for a forward than to play against the Liechtenstein and try and get, his pace would have been lethal, and try and get him a goal or two. So that was puzzling. Nathan Broadhead deserved to start, I thought he did pretty well. Unlucky to have his goal disallowed. VAR is ridiculous, and I'm bored of it, and I just got no time for it at all. It's frustrating because on one hand, I do feel that the squad that we've got now is effectively what we've got. I don't see loads of players coming through the 21s where I'm like, they should be playing. Maybe one or two you could say, like, oh, could you give Biancheri a chance? Could you give whoever, Charlie Crew, Beck, a couple of others, but Keane Ashford, like, there's a few, but there's not loads where you're like, wow, this next generation. Now, the younger generation of the 15, 16, 17s, maybe that's a different story, but they are not ready yet. So as we are, this is kind of what we've got. And maybe on one hand, if we get to the playoffs, that's probably where we are. But on the other hand, I feel a bit disappointed because I feel that there's been games and there's been moments during this qualifying period that we could have executed a certain plan, or we could have done certain things that maybe would have made it a bit easier for us. Now, it will be really fascinating to see what direction he goes with against North Macedonia on Tuesday, because generally speaking, in home games, Craig has gone with a 4-3-3 and a single pivot, generally speaking. So look, Carl Darlow's going to be in goal. I'm just going to go through it on the BBC site as I talk to you. I think, I'd be very shocked if it's not Dylan Lawler and Joe Rodon as your centre backs. Fine with that. That's absolutely fine. I'm going to leave the full backs a minute. I would expect Daniel James to play, but I wasn't very impressed with him yesterday. He has all the pace in the world, and he's really improved as a footballer over the recent years in terms of his general link-up play. But yesterday, what I saw was exactly what I see from Brennan Johnson in a Wales shirt. Almost a fear to go past your fullback and lose the ball and take a risk. So constantly cutting inside and looking for a little link up that way and being more concerned with not losing the ball. Well, with the greatest of respect, I don't think Daniel James is in there to retain possession of the football. Surely he's in there to get one-on-one with a fullback, get in behind, utilise his pace, and either get a shot off or put the ball in the box. To do that, you've got to take risks and you've got to be brave. So I would go with him just because his pace is such a weapon. So he'd be one winger. And this is where it gets really, really interesting for me. Do you go with a Brennan Johnson, who should be our main man, but isn't? Do you go with, a Sorba Thomas, who's been electric? I would go with Sorba Thomas. I think his form this season has been good enough. You've got, who else have you got in there who could play wide? You've got Lewis Kumas, I thought looked quite sharp yesterday. You've got Isaac Davis, Brennan Johnson. It's not a massive list, right? Me personally, I'm probably going with Sorba Thomas, but that's me. Some people might disagree with that. Is he going to go with a single pivot? I think single pivot would be a mistake against North Macedonia, as we are. Certainly in the way that we normally play it. So the way he did it when Ampadu and Jordan James were out injured earlier this year, we played Sheenan in the 6. We played Cullen and Harry Wilson as attacking 8s. In my opinion, that would be a massive, massive mistake. So let's assume that he's going to go with that sort of that system, that shape. Who are your options for the 6? You've got Josh Sheenan. Joel Colwell can play a 6, although I don't think it's his most natural role at the moment. Or you look to a Nico Williams or someone like that to do a job. It's a big risk. So me personally, I would go with a more traditional kind of 4-2-3-1, because I think that you've got to give yourself a better shape and a bit more security. And in that sort of 4-2-3-1, I think that's when you can actually be aggressive, but also give yourself a bit of structure and a bit of protection. So look, I'm 99% sure Josh Sheenan's going to be in there as the sort of more defensive of the two midfielders. So I'll tell you the side that I've got currently, and we're building it bit by bit. I've got Darlow, I've got Lawler and Roden, I've got Sheenan in the 6, I've got Harry Wilson in the 10, I've got Sorba Thomas on one side, and I've got Daniel James on the other side. Now, I'm going to actually take Daniel James out, and I'm going to put David Brooks in. I believe Brooks gives us a little bit something different from the wide area, particularly if we go with what I'm about to suggest. So a friend of mine, Martin, who I think is in the chat, suggested to me earlier that he thinks we should go with Nico Williams and Sheenan as the 2 in the midfield. I'm not so sure about that, but I don't think it's the worst idea either. Me personally, I would go with Nico Williams on the left back. I thought Jay De Silva was quite poor. Now, statistically, he did pretty well, but I always rely on the eye test, and he worries me. So I would go with, specifically for this game, for this game scenario, what we need from the game, I'm going Nico Williams on the left, Sorba Thomas on the left, and then on the right-hand side, I'm going David Brooks as the sort of wide forward, and at right back, I'd go with Ronan Kapakio. Home stadium, quick, aggressive, can get forward, but defensively is solid too. We'll have Dylan Lawler next to him in terms of, yes, he's very young, but they play together week in, week out. And I think his forward running will complement David Brooks really, really well. So as I'm building this side, I've got two positions left. I've got the midfielder next to Josh Sheenan, and I've got the striker. So if we look at the striker first, your options are fairly slim. You go Brennan Johnson through the middle, has not been particularly successful for Wales in that position. You've got Mark Harris, does a lot of work. Does he, he hasn't scored any goals, so I suppose you can't, in a game you've got to win, you need a goal scorer in there. You've got Nathan Broadhead. Did he do enough yesterday to suggest that he could play? Well, I think in terms of his abilities, I think, yes, he can. But can he play as a lone striker with runners off him? That's the question. I think his link-up's pretty good, but I think he likes to drop in a little bit. And do you need someone a bit more like a traditional 9? Lewis Kumas, I don't think he's anywhere, ready to play as a number 9. Liam Cullen or Ruben Colwell would be like a false 9, really. I don't think that suits. Isaac Davis. I would have liked to have seen Isaac Davis through the middle yesterday at some point, but, it wasn't to be. So, or do you go with Daniel James through the middle? Now, this is the question. It kind of depends on how you think. How do you think North Macedonia are going to set up? Bearing in mind, North Macedonia only need a draw to finish second. They do not need to come and beat us. So I would suggest that we need a fast start, get the crowd on side, etc. In my opinion, and again, it's only my opinion, I'm actually leaning towards playing Daniel James, which goes against everything which I kind of believe in. So I'm going to put Nathan Broadhead in there because I look at it and it's like, who'd you go with? Do you go like you go with Brennan, who just simply, it just hasn't worked for him at international level? Do you take the risk and say, right, Brennan, go and do a job for us as a number 9, show us your quality? I'm not against that because he's such a good footballer. We just haven't seen it for Wales. I'm going to go with Broadhead he's been in good form. I've been quite impressed with his kind of link-up play, and he's capable of getting a goal. So I'm going to go with Broadhead, freshen it up, do something different. So we've got Darlow, Nico Williams, Roden, Lawler, Kipakiao, Josh Sheenan in the 6, Sorba Thomas one side, Brooks the other, Wilson in the 10, Broadhead. There's one position left. It's the pivot next to Sheenan. Shall we look at the options? So, options, you've got Ruben Colwell, Joel Colwell, Daniel James. Maybe one of the defenders could go in there. I don't think we don't need to be super defensive. What we need is a solid structure. I think the back 4 enables us to be quite solid. Lawler will push up and Roden will push up when needed into the midfield. Kipakiao and Williams both like to invert or overlap. So you have a lot of structure and cover there in the central areas. Who is going to be best to slot in alongside Josh Sheenan and just be... So do you want a tempo setter? Or do you want more of a box-to-box? And that's where it gets a bit difficult and a bit puzzling, because I think if you want a bit of a tempo setter and someone who can get on the ball and use it, then Ruben's probably your best bet. But generally speaking, he doesn't play in a double pivot. He plays further up. Ironically, when he came on yesterday, I thought he played too far forward. He needs to be a little bit deeper to get on the ball. Do you drop Harry Wilson back one alongside Sheenan and then bring in a Cullen or a Ruben or someone, whoever in the 10, or move Brooks into the 10, Daniel James in wide, and you drop Harry Wilson in? Could David Brooks play alongside Sheenan? I think maybe that's one that you could look at. My Cardiff head says put Ruben in there. And I think for this particular game, it could work. But my sort of more risky head says, right, put Daniel James, not my more risky, my sort of trying to take the bias Cardiff sort of feeling out of it and not just pick Cardiff players, try and pick the best player for the job. I wonder if putting a Brooks or a Wilson. But I think my problem is if you put Brooks or Wilson in there, I think it becomes the single pivot, 2 attacking eights. And I'm just not sure that's what we need tomorrow. A lot of it depends on how the opposition's set up. Of course it does. And, you could end up with, will Craig go with a more like a 3-5-2? I think it's possible. I don't think it's likely. But I mean, I guess you could, if you look at the potential options for that, maybe that is a better option. It's so difficult now because Jordan James and Ethan Ampadu are such a big part of how Wales play. We miss Harry Wilson. Harry Wilson's been the absolute best player by far under Craig Bellamy. He's a game changer. So obviously Harry Wilson's playing. Do you risk dropping him deeper? Do you play him as a as more like the 2 attacking eights? I guess one way, if Craig is really of the belief that North Macedonia are going to be quite happy to sit in and be 11 men behind the ball, generally, I think they'll be much more of an attacking threat than Liechtenstein. Don't get me wrong. But I just mean in terms of pressing and things like that, they're going to kind of sit in. Maybe he does go with like a 3-5-2 because what that does it give you is you can kind of go with the single pivot and you can have Sheenan in the 6, but you can have, wide. You could have Daniel James or Sorba Thomas actually on one side. You could have Nico Williams on the other side, and then you can go with Harry Wilson. Or actually, you could even go with David Brooks, Sheenan, and so we are so light in players. Ruben, say, as the 3, and then have Harry Wilson sort of up front, but just off the striker. But it's, again, who is the striker? We haven't got without Kiefer Moore. We have not got an out-and-out 9 who can hold the ball up and Harry Wilson could play off. And it's so difficult. So difficult. And I understand people's criticisms of Craig Bellamy and I understand criticisms of his in-game management. I thought risking those players yesterday was ridiculous. When Jordan James got booked, I just couldn't believe we left Ethan Ampadu on after that. But when you really grill down and you go on that BBC site or any other site to pick your team and you look at the players available, it isn't like we've got this like deep array of talent. We just don't. So I'm going to do this a minute just for the sake of conversation. Let's say we go 4-3-3, but I'm going to go with 4-2-3-1, like with a double pivot. I'm going to go with the suggestion that Martin gave me earlier. Sheenan and Nico Williams is your double pivot. I think Lawler and Roden will be the centre backs, and Harry Wilson's going to play in the 10. So that's your kind of spine. Okay, so you've got Roden, Lawler, Nico, Sheenan, Wilson. That's your spine. Good, decent spine. I'm happy with that. So it's like, what do you do from that? So, like, I tend to think that Harry Wilson absolutely has to be off the striker in the 10. I'm not sure. And remember, Nico Williams hasn't been in the best of form for Wales either the last couple of games. I'm just wondering if he's the best option in midfield. And this is where it gets puzzling. I'd be looking to get David Brooks in my side on Tuesday. I think he keeps the ball really well. But you need that creative spark. And I think he does give you a little bit of something. Could you, I mean, it is an outside-the-box thinking for you. Could you go with like a Sorba Thomas at left back instead of left wing to give you an extra number? It's whether he does the defensive work, and I think there's question marks over that. So I'm genuinely interested in what people would do, and please do let me know in the comments. Let me know in the in the things and I can't get my words out. Let me know in the live chat. Let me know in the comments what you would do, because it's really interesting. And I know everyone's saying, oh, you should play this guy, you should play that guy. It's not that simple, because you've got to get the balance right, going backwards and forwards. But you've also got yourself in this position now where you just haven't got the same options in a team that didn't have many options anyway. So I'm going to put my Cardiff head on for a second, because I always, I definitely took it off. Yeah, I definitely took it off. And we're going to go 4-2-3-1. How about this? Nico Williams on the left back. Ronan Capacchio, right back. Do you see where this is going now? Would this side be good enough to beat North Macedonia this week? It's a question I'm going to put to you now. So this is the team which I've gone with, and I want you to tell me where I'm wrong. I'm really struggling with a striker, I got to say. Do you know what? Right, I'm going to put him in there. So this is my team, right? This is the team which I'm going to pick for Tuesday. Carl Darlow in goal. Capacchio, Lawler, Roden, and Williams as your back four. Ruben Carwell and Sheenan as your double pivot. David Brooks on the right. Harry Wilson in the 10. Sorba Thomas left. Brennan Johnson through the middle. So you tell me now, what would you change? I'm generally interested, because I just think we haven't got the depth. We haven't got the quality. And, I want us all to be, I want Wales to be successful. I want Wales to have this, generational talent coming through. Now, don't get me wrong. The likes of Dylan Lawler and Capacchio and the Colwell brothers, some of the others as well, Cullen maybe, Lewis Kumas. I think they'll be good for Wales in a couple of years. But some of them I don't think are ready now, but they're in the squad by default. Does Ronan Capacchio probably need another 12 months of club football before he's a regular for Wales? Maybe. I think on his club form, he definitely deserves his spot in the squad. We have Norrington Davis, I'm not convinced by. In recent games, I've thought Nico looks a bit better at left back, or looks more comfortable at left back. In terms of your other fullbacks, who have you got? De Silva, I was not convinced by him at all. If you go to a back three, I suppose that's where you could then bring Meepham in, and you go Lawler, Roden, Meepham as a back three. That could work. Not too against that. The obvious problem we have is the double pivot. The two of the three midfielders, Harry Wilson is going to play. Who are your two midfielders? That's the problem. And the problem isn't just personnel. It's because we've got our best two midfielders out. And in my opinion, it was avoidable. So avoidable. Now, because we're in a position now where, I guess if you were just going round pegs in round holes, it would be Sheenan and Joel Colwell. Surely, if Joel Colwell was going to play on Tuesday in this huge game for Wales, he should have played against Liechtenstein to get him ready and more comfortable in a Welsh shirt. So, to me, the Liechtenstein game was the game to play Joel Colwell, to play Liam Cullen, to play Lewis Kumas, to play Isaac Davis, whoever. Like, that's when they should have played. Yes, they should have played yesterday. So let's have a look at some of the comments and see where people's heads are at, because I'm sure people disagree with me. It's not a problem at all. But Lewis says, I've no idea what Bellamy was doing, not taking Ampadu and James off. Shows the non-experience. But I swear to God, if we see Cullen and Sheenan again, we're in big trouble. Well, we're definitely going to see Sheena, mate. And I cannot see a world where he plays Joel as a 6. So unless he plays one of the defenders as a 6, that's the question. Now, right, because Bellamy does have one habit of throwing something out of the box, like completely unexpected sometimes. Is there anyone in this squad who he could put in the 6 instead of or alongside Sheenan, who's not a natural 6? Could he throw a Dylan Lawler in the midfield or a Nico Williams, maybe, like I suggested, Martin suggested? Could you drop David Brooks back into the double pivot? I think that's definitely a possibility. But if you're going round pegs, round holes, they should have given some of these younger lads a go yesterday to prepare them. Even in Paul, Martin, everyone. Let's have a look. Paul says, I think we got a goal. We should have made the changes, especially to those who were on cards. Yeah, 100%. I also think yesterday's game would have been massively different if the first goal stands in the first half. I think, that plays out a different game. Paul also said, should we have risked Jordan James and Ethan Ampadu? In my opinion, no, we shouldn't have. And I said that I actually texted Martin before the game and said, what are we doing? Why are we risking them? But there we go. It is what it is. And Paul adds there, he said, we should have left them out and kept them for the Macedonia game. Jordan James and Ethan Ampadu are those types that will lose their heads. They're just aggressive, aren't they, in the way they play? And the problem is, those two, as I've said many, many times, they're so young, but they're so experienced. They're such a good combination for the Welsh midfield. They're such a good double pivot. And we not only have one of them out, we have both of them out needlessly. Ampadu was unlucky. I don't think his foul warranted a card. Could you understand why the goal was disallowed? So the Ampadu one, I think, unfortunately, in this type of football, is just one of them, innit? It's not a booking for me, but it is what it is. I believe that the goal was disallowed because I think it's Rodon's offside, and then he comes back and challenges for the ball. I don't know if it hits him, but he challenges for the ball. So if he was offside and then he engages, I think if he just stays out of the play, maybe it stands. It was so minimal and so fine line. And VAR, for me, is not a clear and obvious error, so they shouldn't have got involved. Simple as that for me. But this is why VAR is so frustrating. Lewis says, please, God, no Cullen in the number 8. Yeah, that would be worrying, mate. But I think it's going to happen, if I'm honest. Because that side that I picked, which was Darlow, Capaccio, Lawler, Roden, Williams, Ruben, Sheenan, Brooks, Wilson, Thomas, Johnson, that's the side I would pick. I'll pick the side I think Bellamy's going to pick in a minute. Paul says, why was Dan James on the right? I think it's because Sorba prefers the left, but I would like to see them swap anyway, just to mix things up. He says, I put Brooks through the middle and put Dan James on the left, Nico behind Sorba on the right, and Capaccio. I put Capaccio. I'd play Capaccio. I think he's got good attributes for a game like this. I think he'll go with Cullen. We definitely missed. Graham says we missed Harry Wilson. 100%. Wilson's back now. This is a good one. Good point. Paul says, is Wilson back? If he is, I'd go with him as a lone striker. You got to have runners about him. So if you were going to go with Harry Wilson as like a false 9, you've got to have legs behind him. So the one thing you could do with that is you could kind of go with like Harry Wilson as a false 9 and then have Brooks, James and Sorba Thomas behind him. Maybe. And I don't think that's the most outrageous suggestion in terms of what he might do. Wilson needs to be further up. Wilson is back. JT says, why did the FAW only look in a tiny pool of Welsh-only coaches? We're going nowhere under Bellamy. Yeah, I know you're not a fan, mate. He started off so well, and I believe that it's a tricky one. I think on one hand, I think that he's got to work with what he's got, which is not a lot in terms of talent, in terms of numbers of talent. But I also think at times he hasn't helped himself, because I think when you've got a small talent pool, you just have to work with the tools you've got as much as possible and give yourself the most amount of tools to use and then use them. And this is the problem. My problem with the game yesterday was that we didn't utilize the tools that we had available to us. So I saw a friend of mine who's has been a scout for years in football yesterday. I bumped into him in the shop and we were talking about the Wales game. It was just straight after the game. And he said, and we kind of agreed, that it wouldn't have been the worst thing yesterday when you were making changes, because you were making changes against Liechtenstein, to kind of chuck the five Cardiff lads into the squad, into the starting lineup, because at least with them, yes, you're making a load of changes, but they have the chemistry of playing together week in, week out. And maybe against a Liechtenstein, which is like got a lot of part-time footballers, that wouldn't have been the worst idea. And look, it's easy with hindsight, but I kind of agreed, if I'm honest. Martin says, when I was mentioning earlier about maybe dropping Wilson or Brooks deeper into the pivot, he says, waste of Wilson's attributes to play him deep. He has to play further up. I tend to agree, mate. It was just hypothesizing. JT says, although Robbie Savage already looks a big upgrade on Bellamy. Now, I'm a big, big fan of Robbie Savage, and I think he's doing a great job. And I think he's a lot more intelligent than people give him credit for, particularly when it comes to like his football IQ and the tactical side of things. I would like to see Robbie Savage be involved with Wales, but preferably I would like to see Bellamy do a good job and utilize what he's got, which is limited. I still believe that Bellamy can qualify. We've got to win Tuesday. Make no mistake. Like, we have to win Tuesday. Graham says, I'd rather Ruben be deeper. He was way too far forward for me. Yeah, I thought that as well. He was almost playing like a striker yesterday. He needed to be deeper to get on the ball. JT says, Bellamy should be a motivational speaker. Quit speaking. He's not quit managing. He's not up to it. I think that's harsh, mate. Like, he's very early into his managerial career. He's like, 18 months into it. And it's not like club football where you can sign players. Like, he's got what he's got, and what he's got is not exactly deep. So Paul's 11 for Tuesday would be Darlow, Capaccio, Lawler, Roden, Nico, Sheenan, Ruben, Daniel James, Sorba Thomas, Brooks with Wilson up front. I don't hate that, mate. I really don't. I think you've got a good back four. You've got two really aggressive fullbacks. You've got a six who can just hold. And then you've got the creativity of Brooks and Ruben with the pace of Dan James and Sorba, as well as Nico and Capaccio, who should be looking to get beyond Wilson. But difficult. Thanks for that, Bark Munkin. Very interesting comment. Paul says, back three, Meepham, Lawler, Roden, with wing backs of Capaccio and Nico. Again, don't hate that as an idea. Martin says, I'd be okay with Asai, referring to the team, which I said, but you can guarantee Bellamy's going to opt for Sheenan and Cullen. Yeah, I can almost guarantee it. Charlie Savage should be in this Wales squad, by the way. Just pointing that out. So I wanted to go back to the team. I'm going to refresh the page, and I'm going to go with what I think Craig is going to pick. Now, obviously, it's difficult, but this is what I believe. This is the side that I think Craig Bellamy will pick. I think he'll go 4-3-3. Darlow, I think, picks himself. I don't think he's going to risk either of the other keepers unless he's injured. I think he'll go Nico Williams right back. I think he'll go De Silva again at left back. And I think he might go with Roden and Meepham. But let's say Dylan retains his place. I think you'll have Sheenan as your single pivot, number 6. And then I think you'll have Harry Wilson and Liam Cullen. Maybe even Brooks and Wilson as the 2/8s. And then I think you'll have Brennan Johnson on one side, Sorba Thomas on the other side, and probably Mark Harris through the middle. That's what I think he'll go with. Do I agree with it? No. Do I think we're going to have a lot of problems with the midfield structure if he goes with that? God, yes. Really think we'll struggle with it. But I'm not a manager. And ultimately, the manager will go and he'll either succeed or not with his selection. JT says Bellamy's very lucky. He's got an easy ride by being in international football. If he was playing this awful football and tactics, he wouldn't last a full season. It's interesting, mate, because tactically, he's trying to do almost exactly the same thing as Brian Barry Murphy. Almost. But they're very similar in how they're trying to play football with the pressing, with the shapes in and out of possession. It's very similar. And this is why I've found it so baffling that Bellamy has a real aversion to picking the Cardiff lads. I know, Lawler kind of forces his way in because he's so good, ultimately. But like when you're playing the same, or you want to play the same way as a club side, which is doing it pretty well, and then you're not utilizing any of those players, it's strange to me. And it feels like, I don't know if people like follow social media, but like Gary Neville's been getting a lot of grief recently for where he's trying to be not biased towards Manchester United, but he's then going too far the other way in the eyes of their fans. So they're giving him a lot of grief on social media. And it feels like with Craig, like even when we did the live event, he was very keen to make it like Wales, and he didn't want to spend too much time talking about Cardiff. He said beforehand he didn't want to do the Ayatollah and things like that. So I wonder if he's almost gone too far the other way, and by like he doesn't want to seem biased to Cardiff, but then he's also almost refusing to pick some of the players when he could. Not saying that they all should be starting or playing by any means, but it's definitely an issue. So I'm going to finish off with this. And I quite like, I think it was Paul, his suggestion of Harry Wilson in a kind of false 9, because I don't think that's the worst idea. So I'm going to go with that. And I'm going to go with a kind of a 4-3-2-1 sort of formation. And I'm going to go with Harry Wilson up top. We're going to have, look, Josh Sheenan's going to be the 6. I would love to see us do something different or adventurous. Do you know what would be interesting? I think I've talked about this before. There's been a lot of talk that people within the Welsh setup view Ruben as a number 6 long term. Wouldn't it be the most ridiculous, laughable, but also slightly ironic thing if he finally gives Ruben a start and he starts him in a number 6? Some would argue set up to fail, but I think Sheenan will be the 6. So if we go with Paul's idea of Wilson up top as the false 9, and I think we'll go with like the same back 4 that we said, I think that should be pretty nailed on. But I think Capaccio should start for this game, and I'll stand by that. I think his attributes are perfect for this type of game where you've got to win. Get Nico Williams back on the left. Who would you play in? So there's 2 going in 4-3-2-1. Harry Wilson, false 9. You've got 2 players behind him, and then 3 midfielders. who would your two behind him be? Because I think you've got to have people who are going to run beyond him. So me personally, I'm going Daniel James and Sorba Thomas as a two behind Harry Wilson. So your front three is James, Thomas, Wilson. And then the midfield is Sheenan. Now, part of me says play the Colwell brothers, but you've got to get David Brooks in there for me. So I'd go Ruben and Brooks with Sheenan, and then James and Thomas off Wilson. And I really actually quite like that system. I quite like that little setup and everything. So yeah, I'm all right with that. I will try and get the team up on the screen, but it doesn't always work. So it's problematic. And I think you have to ask yourself one thing. Are the problems that Wales are going to have with selection for Tuesday self-inflicted? And unfortunately, I kind of think they are. Now, you know, I don't want to be like negative. I want to say, so that's the team that I've just come up with based off your man, Graham. Was it Graham or Paul? One of you, sorry guys, said Harry Wilson, false nine. And then I've gone with James and Thomas behind for the legs to run beyond by year. And then I've gone a three with Ruben, Sheenan, and Brooks with the back four as a back four. I think that is as good as we can pick. And then, so I wouldn't be against changing one of them, Sorba Thomas or Daniel James, for Brennan Johnson in that system. And you tell Brennan Johnson to get beyond Harry Wilson when he drops in. I don't think that's the worst idea. I think one of Craig Bellamy's great challenges at the moment is to find a way to get the best out of best out of Brennan Johnson, because Brennan Johnson is an excellent footballer. Brennan Johnson, from a pure talent point of view, is one of, if not Wales' best player. We simply have not seen it in a Wales shirt. And I think Craig's challenge is to find a way to do it. So how do you do it? How do you get the best out of Brennan Johnson? Well, Brennan Johnson thrives one-on-one in the final third, in behind. Maybe that system of Harry Wilson being a false nine and dropping in, pulling the mid. The idea of that is that you pull the centre back out of position and you have a runner who runs in behind then into the space. Could that be perfect for Brennan Johnson? Maybe that's the way you get the best out of him. It's not by playing him as a nine. It's by playing him off a nine who drops in nice and deep because they're not really a nine. I don't know. I'm genuinely interested in it. It's really fascinating tactically. And I know this has been quite a tactics kind of heavy show, but I didn't want to spend too much time on the Liechtenstein game because it's depressingly frustrating. Statistically, by the way, Wales did very well. You know, I thought Jordan James was by far the standout player. I'm gutted for him because I thought it was a real mature performance from him. And I'm gutted for him personally that he's ended up in that sort of situation. I thought Nathan Broadhead did pretty well. I felt for him when he had the goal disallowed. But he had a key pass, good passing accuracy, long balls were good. Nathan Broadhead had a really good statistically game. But even in the eye test, I thought Nathan Broadhead did really well. You know, Mark Harris, who everyone's been getting on, did all right when you look at his data. Had 2 shots saved, one from open play, one from, one shot off target, one on target. And I thought, you know, he did all right in terms of his passing. Didn't really give the ball away very much. 6 out of 8 accurate passes, dribbles. 13 touches, no successful dribbles, lost possession 3 times. And obviously defensively, he won 1 out of 2 ground duels. Yeah, Sparky is he needs a goal, I think, in Wales colours to get him going. I'm hoping, but this isn't like an attack on Mark Harris, but playing him as a 9, right? He's in there to press and to work, but he's also got to score goals. Does he do that? Does he do anything better than if Lewis Kumas played there doing the same role, or Isaac Davis played there and did the same role? Brennan Johnson did. I don't think Brennan Johnson presses as well as the others, or Liam Cullen could play up there and maybe like let him play in his actual position for a change would be nice. I don't know. Like, I just look at it and I think Mark Harris as the 9 yesterday against Liechtenstein specifically. All of the subs, right? Ruben, Lewis, Kumas, David Brooks, Liam Cullen, Brennan Johnson. So all 5 of the subs who got on the pitch yesterday, I believe all of them would have done a better job than Mark Harris did in the same position. I also think that Isaac Davis would have done a better job and would have been more of a goal threat. That's just an opinion, and opinions are like, everyone's got one, so it is what it is. We need our fans more than ever on Tuesday. Tuesday is massive. We have to find a way to get behind the team, get behind Craig Bellamy, and he has to find a way to set this team up and get the best out of the players. We have to start fast, and we have to. An early goal changes everything. If we can get an early goal, North Macedonia have to come out and play, and they have to get a goal themselves, which then allows us to use it for transition and maybe try and use the pace of Daniel James and Brennan Johnson or whoever, because otherwise I got a feeling they're going to just sit in because they only need a draw. We have to find a way to get an early goal. And unfortunately, with the midfield options seriously depleted, I'm concerned, and I don't think I'm alone in that. I'm concerned that we don't have the options to really open them up. It's tricky. So there's lots of stuff coming. Me and Harry are doing the Cymru Am Byrdd podcast. We're doing it straight after the game on Tuesday. So Harry's back, and we're going to have instant emotional reaction one way or the other on Tuesday. I know, I was texting me and Harry were texting all the way through the game yesterday, and neither of us were particularly impressed, shall we say. But I'll let Harry speak for himself, of course, on Tuesday night. All the regular faces will be on this week. So here's a hypothetical to finish on. JT says, who does a better job if BBM and Bellamy hypothetically swap jobs? Well, with exactly the same squads, not allowed to sign anyone, just as it is now. Interesting, right? Because I think Brian Barry Murphy is the perfect manager for Cardiff and where they are now in terms of young players and the project and everything. I think he's the perfect guy for it. So if everything's the same, I think Brian Barry Murphy would do a better job. I really do. I think if everything's the same, I think Brian Barry Murphy probably gets more out of this Welsh squad than what Craig is getting at the moment. Because as limited as we are, and we are limited, I think we've shown that by the different permutations that we could pick on Tuesday. We are limited. However, I'm not sure that Craig is getting the most out of this Welsh squad at the moment. That might change. And let me leave you with this, and this one could be one for you to answer in the comments afterwards in the video. if anyone's got any knocks, is there any of the Wales under-21s that you would bring into the first team for Tuesday that you think, maybe could have an impact on the game state? I know it's tricky because they haven't had the best of times lately, but is there anyone there from the most recent game that could come in and do a job? It's fascinating, really, because they haven't particularly done great recently, but there is some talent there, and I'm kind of a bit unsure, should we say, in terms of who could we bring in? Is there anyone that we could bring in to try and bolster the ranks Tuesday? And I mean, maybe to give you options off the bench. And just not sure there is. And I think therein lies the problem. If you did want to freshen it up because you've got a knock or you've got these players out, you'd like to think that there's a couple in the under-21s that could really, give you something dynamic or give you something different for a one-off game. But is there anyone that you could bring in? They've just come off the back of a 3-1 loss against Belarus. Is there any players in that group that could come in and bolster the ranks? For instance, I know Martin is absolutely entrenched in all the sort of development football, Cardiff and Wales, so he'd be in a better position to tell us all. But I mean, I'm genuinely interested because, I believe one of Craig's kind of faults in recent camps has been not utilizing all the tools available to him. So I guess I'm asking you, is there any extra tools that he could use by calling them up? There you go. Martin, see? Charlie Crew in the pivot. Yeah, I could get on board with that, mate. Although I think, Charlie Crew is... He shouldn't have left Cardiff in hindsight. Easy to say with hindsight. Paul says nothing really has impressed him from the 21s. Cardiff City fan says, what player do you believe should deserve a call-up? So for me, I don't know if you're asking me about the 21s or if you're asking me about me saying that he's not utilising what's available to him. So for me, in terms of Craig not utilising what's available to him, I believe that he should have, like I said earlier, there was no need to play a lot of the players yesterday who played, and obviously the two ended up being banned. They didn't need to play yesterday. That is utilising your squad. I think I've been quite sort of consistent saying Ruben should have been at least coming off the bench in the last couple of games. I would have utilised Kapakia. I would have utilised... yesterday I would have utilised probably all of them just because they should all be able to deal with that. In terms of who I'd like to see get a call up, Charlie Crew is one, even though he's kind of not maybe kicked on as much as I was hoping he would with regular football. I think the talent is there with Charlie Crew, and he is, he's playing somewhat regular football now, and he's a young man who's got a tremendous amount of talent. And I'll tell you one thing, I think he'd do a better job in the number 6 than Josh Sheenan would for this particular game, because you need someone who can keep hold of the ball better and receive the ball in tight areas. One of my biggest criticisms of the midfield setup of Sheenan and Cullen Wilson was that outside of Wilson, none of them wanted the ball. Now, you need a 6 who genuinely is happy to have the ball under pressure. Charlie Crew is one of them players. He's real press resistant. He's not in the squad as it stands. Mafiko, for the future, innit? But unfortunately with Wales, because our pool is so small, the chances are if Mafiko gets a run of games for Cardiff, he'll probably be in the Wales squad. You know, Enquiries goes on loan somewhere and scores a few goals, he'll probably be in the first team squad. The pool is so small that is what it is, isn't it? Right, that's me done. Thank you so much, as always. Got a long day tomorrow, but I will be on the radio, Newport City Radio. Tune in on DAB and tune in radio app and all that good stuff. Start the week off with a bang. Start the week off right. Join old Si on the radio. I'm on from 11 on my own, but I'll be on air from about 10. Joining the breakfast shake-up crew. So do join me and say hello and all that good stuff. Play guest of the year. It's always a good time. There's all sorts of content coming this week. You know, bit of Wales stuff for the next day or two, and then it's non-stop Cardiff City. Got some banging videos coming. Got some nice retro videos coming featuring some cameos from ex-players in them as well. So got some good stuff coming. As always, it's a pleasure to spend my Sunday evenings with you guys. Please do spread the word about Cardiff City World and tell your friends, as it were. And I'll see you in a bit. Keep the faith. Cymru am Byrth.
This channel is powered by an incredible membership community on Cardiff City World and patreon.com/AcePodcastNation. Becoming a member unlocks exclusive rewards from early access to live event tickets, bonus content, and even the occasional inside transfer scoop when we get it. But more importantly, it allows us to bring you top quality Cardiff City content 7 days a week. Across those 7 days, we're talking match previews, exclusive interviews, instant match reactions, the breakdown podcast, tactical deep dives, the Spotlight series, Bluebirds Rewind, Academy Focus, and just so much more. Led by myself, backed by an army of passionate Cardiff City fans, this is content created by fans, for fans, balanced, professional, and 100% all about the club we all love. If you enjoy what we do, then join the community today and support what we are doing as we help to keep Cardiff City World flying high.